I object. 2 words. That's all it took to shatter a wedding worth $63,000. The coastal venue went silent. Champagne glasses froze midair. The officiant's mouth hung open like a fish gasping for water. 200 guests turned their heads toward me in perfect unison, their faces a mix of shock and confusion. Evan's face drained of color. All that California tan vanished in an instant, leaving him pale as a ghost. His hand, the one holding Lara's, started trembling. The bride. Oh, the bride. Laura Stanton stood there in her $12,000 gown, the one I unknowingly paid for, looking like someone just told her the world was ending. Because for her it was. I stepped forward, my heels clicking against the stone pathway. I wore a pale blue suit. Simple, elegant, powerful. I didn't come here to blend in. I came here to be remembered. Who are you? The officiant stammered, clutching his book like it might protect him from whatever storm was about to hit. I smiled.
Calm.
Collected. The kind of smile that makes people nervous because it's too controlled, too knowing. I'm Jenna Marks, I said, my voice carrying across the silent crowd. Evan Reed's legal wife. The gasps came in waves. Someone dropped their phone. A bridesmaid's bouquet hit the ground. Cameras came out immediately, because of course they did. This was prime social media content, and everyone knew it. Have you ever trusted someone so completely that you ignored every red flag waving right in front of your face? Drop a like if you've been there, because this story is about to show you what happens when trust meets deception. Evan tried to speak. His mouth opened and closed twice before any sound came out. Jenna, I can explain. I held up a folder.
Thick.
Organized. Every page inside represented a lie, a theft, a betrayal.
No need, I said.
I brought the receipts. Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. The murmurs started low and built like thunder rolling in from the ocean behind us. I could feel the energy shift. These people came for a celebration. Instead, they were about to witness an execution, the social kind, which in some circles is far more devastating than any other. I opened the folder slowly, deliberately. Each second of silence added weight to what was coming. Lara's hand flew to her mouth. Evan looked like he wanted the ground to swallow him whole. On April 3rd, I began, my voice steady as a surgeon's hand. $20,000 transferred from our joint account to L. Stanton. That's you, Laura, in case anyone's confused. A woman in the third row gasped so loud it echoed. May 10th. $13,000 for the venue deposit. I gestured around us at the gorgeous coastal property, the white flowers, the elegant archway. This venue. Beautiful choice, by the way. Someone in the crowd whispered, "Oh my God." June 5th. $8,000 for custom dress fittings. My eyes moved to Lara's gown. That dress does look stunning. I should know. I paid for it. The crowd erupted in whispers. Phones were up everywhere now, recording, texting, posting. This wedding was about to go viral, just not in the way anyone planned. Evan reached toward me. Jenna, please. I stepped back, keeping my distance. Total amount stolen from my personal accounts to fund this wedding? I paused, letting the tension build. $63,000. The number hung in the air like smoke from a gun. Heavy. Undeniable.
Deadly.
Lara's perfect makeup started running. Tears mixed with mascara, creating black rivers down her cheeks. She looked at Evan, then at me, then back at Evan, her face twisting between rage and panic. You told me you were divorced, she screamed at him. Now that was interesting.
So she didn't know.
Or maybe she didn't want to know. Either way, she was about to learn a very expensive lesson about asking the right questions. I turned to face her directly. Congratulations, Laura. You didn't just get a wedding. I closed the folder with a sharp snap. You got a felony accessory charge waiting to happen. The officiant backed away slowly, like I might be contagious. Smart man. Security was already moving toward us. I could see them in my peripheral vision, 2 large men in dark suits weaving through the crowd. But I wasn't done yet. You're probably wondering how I ended up here, I said, addressing the crowd now, my voice carrying over the sound of waves crashing behind us. How a regular Tuesday evening coffee turned into me standing at my husband's wedding to his ex-fiancée. Every eye was locked on me. Even the seagulls seemed to stop mid-flight to listen. It started with a wire transfer. I continued. A single transaction I almost missed. $20,000 to a name I didn't recognize. Evan tried to interrupt again. Jenna, I was going to tell you. When? I snapped, my composure cracking just enough to let real anger through. After you stole more? After their honeymoon? When exactly were you planning to confess that you'd been funding your ex's fairy tale with my money? He had no answer. Just stood there, drowning in his own lies, while 200 witnesses watched him sink. The security guards reached us. One touched my elbow gently. Ma'am, we're going to have to ask you to leave. I nodded, already turning away. I got what I came for. The truth was out, recorded on dozens of phones, spreading across social media faster than wildfire. But as I walked back down that aisle, the same aisle Lara was supposed to walk in triumph, I stopped. Turned around one last time. Oh, and Evan? I called out. He looked up, desperate hope flickering in his eyes like maybe, just maybe, I was about to forgive him. The divorce papers will be delivered Monday morning, along with fraud charges. Hope the wedding was worth it. I didn't wait to see his reaction. Just kept walking, my heels clicking against stone, my head high, my spine straight. Behind me, chaos erupted. Lara's scream. Evan's protests. Guests shouting questions. The wedding planner crying. But I was already gone, disappearing into my car as the scene I'd orchestrated played out exactly as planned. You see, revenge isn't about rage. It's about precision. It's about waiting for the perfect moment when your enemy is at their highest point, surrounded by everyone they want to impress. And then you push. What would you do if you discovered your partner had stolen thousands to fund their ex's dream wedding? Comment below because this story is just getting started, and you need to hear how I got here. How a financial analyst who prided herself on logic ended up married to a liar who thought I was too in love to notice. Spoiler alert, I noticed everything. 5 years earlier, I didn't believe in love at first sight. I believed in spreadsheets, compound interest, and diversified portfolios. Love was a variable I couldn't calculate, so I avoided it. Then I met Evan Reed at a startup networking event in San Francisco, and all my careful logic went out the window. He stood by the bar, laughing at something someone said, his entire face lit up with this infectious energy that made everyone around him lean closer. He wore a wrinkled button-down and jeans while everyone else played dress-up in designer suits. He didn't fit in, and somehow that made him magnetic. I was there for work, scanning the room for potential clients. My boss wanted me to mingle, make connections, pretend I enjoyed small talk about market trends and quarterly projections. I hated every second of networking events. Evan caught me checking my watch for the third time in 10 minutes. Bored already? He asked, appearing beside me with 2 champagne glasses. Or are you timing how long before you can escape without seeming rude? I laughed despite myself. Is it that obvious? Only to someone doing the exact same thing. He handed me a glass. Evan Reed. Professional dreamer, terrible businessman, excellent conversation starter. That honesty hooked me immediately. Everyone at these events inflated their success, exaggerated their connections. But here was someone admitting failure with a smile. We talked for 2 hours straight. He told me about his startup idea, some app that would revolutionize local businesses, all passion and zero business plan. I told him it would crash within 6 months, without proper funding structure. See, this is why I need someone like you, he said, eyes bright with possibility. You think in systems. I think in dreams. Together, we'd be unstoppable. If you've ever met someone who made you believe in possibilities you'd written off as impossible, you know exactly how I felt that night. Hit that like button if you've ever ignored red flags because someone made you feel alive. We started dating a week later. He took me to cheap diners at midnight and expensive viewpoints at sunrise. He made me laugh at things I'd normally find impractical. He taught me that not everything needed to make financial sense to make emotional sense. I fell hard. The kind of falling where you don't realize you're plummeting until you've already hit the ground. 2 years into dating, his startup failed.
Predictably.
He'd burned through investor money on marketing before developing a working product. He came to my apartment that night, devastated, broke, convinced his life was over at 29. I held him while he cried. Then, I helped him rebuild. I covered his rent for 3 months while he found freelance work. I co-signed a loan when no bank would trust him. I believed in him when he'd stopped believing in himself. "I don't deserve you," he whispered one night, wrapped around me in bed. "You'll pay me back," I said, kissing his forehead. "When you're back on your feet." He never did pay me back. Not in money, anyway. He paid me in promises instead. A year later, he proposed. Nothing fancy, just him on one knee in my kitchen, holding a ring he'd saved 6 months to afford. It wasn't expensive, but it was real. Or so I thought.
"Marry me," he said.
"Let me spend the rest of my life proving I'm worthy of you." I said yes. Because I loved him. Because I believed love could overcome financial instability. Because every romance novel I'd secretly read as a teenager told me that struggling together made relationships stronger. We got married at City Hall with 2 witnesses and cheap champagne. My parents didn't approve. They saw Evan as a financial liability. His parents didn't attend, complicated family dynamics he never fully explained. It was just us. And for a while, that felt like enough. The first year of marriage was beautiful in its simplicity. We lived in my 1-bedroom apartment. I worked my analyst job. He freelanced in marketing. We cooked dinner together, watched terrible reality TV, made love like newlyweds do. But underneath the surface, something shifted. Small things at first. He started mentioning joint accounts. "We're married now," he'd say casually over breakfast. "Separate finances feel like we're roommates, not partners." I hesitated. Years of financial independence made me cautious. But marriage was about trust, about building something together. Wasn't it? He pressed gently, never demanding, always suggesting. "What's mine is yours, babe. I want us to be a real team. No secrets. No walls." 6 months of gentle persuasion wore me down. I agreed to open a joint account. Nothing major at first, just for household expenses, utilities, groceries. "This is good," Evan said, kissing me after we left the bank. "This is what partnership looks like." I transferred $5,000 into our joint account that afternoon. Then another $10,000 the following month. Then my entire savings account 2 months after that. $73,000. My safety net. My emergency fund. The financial cushion I'd built over 8 years of careful budgeting and strategic investing. All sitting in an account with both our names on it. Evan held me that night, whispering promises into my hair about our future. About the house we'd buy. The kids we'd have. The life we'd build together. I fell asleep feeling secure, loved, partnered. I had no idea I'd just funded my own betrayal. What I didn't know then, what I couldn't have known, was that Evan had already reconnected with Laura Stanton 3 months earlier. His ex-fiancée. The woman who'd supposedly broken his heart so badly he couldn't trust women anymore. Turns out, he trusted her just fine. With my money. The first withdrawal happened on a Tuesday. I remember, because Tuesdays were my favorite day of the week. Light workload, yoga at 6, dinner with Evan at 8. Our routine. Our rhythm. I was paying our property tax bill online when I noticed the account balance looked wrong. Not dramatically wrong, just off by about $500. I scrolled through recent transactions. There it was, a transfer I didn't recognize. The memo said business expenses. When Evan got home, I asked him about it casually. No accusation in my tone. Just curiosity. "Oh yeah," he said, barely looking up from his phone. "New client needed some upfront materials. I'll expense it back next week." Made sense. He'd been taking on more freelance work. Business expenses were normal. Except he never expensed it back. 2 weeks later, another $1,200 vanished. Same memo. Same casual explanation. These clients are killing me with their demands, he laughed, kissing my cheek. But the contracts are solid. Money's coming. I wanted to believe him. Marriage meant trust, right? Questioning every transaction felt paranoid, controlling. The kind of behavior that poisoned relationships. So I stayed quiet. Pushed down the tiny voice whispering that something felt wrong. A month passed. $3,000 disappeared in scattered transactions. Always labeled business expenses or vendor payments. Always explained away with Evan's charming smile and reassuring words. But I work in finance. Numbers are my language. And these numbers were starting to tell a story I didn't want to hear. One evening in April, I stayed late at the office finishing a client report. Around 9 p.m., I decided to check our account before heading home, just to make sure I had enough for groceries the next day. The balance stopped me cold. $20,000.
Gone.
Not scattered across multiple transactions this time. One single wire transfer to a name I'd never seen before. L. Stanton. My hands shook as I clicked for more details. The transfer had happened that morning at 10:15. Right around the time Evan texted me saying he was grabbing coffee with a potential client. I sat in my dark office, staring at my computer screen, feeling something crack inside my chest. $20,000. To L. Stanton. Who was that? I drove home on autopilot, my mind racing through possibilities. Maybe it was legitimate. Maybe L. Stanton was a vendor, a contractor, someone Evan hired for a big project. Evan was on the couch when I walked in, watching basketball, drinking beer, completely relaxed. Hey babe, he smiled. Rough day. I sat down beside him slowly.
Carefully.
Like approaching a wild animal. I saw a large transfer today, I said, keeping my voice neutral. $20,000 to someone named L. Stanton. Can you tell me what that's about? His expression didn't change. Not even a flicker. That's what scared me most, how smoothly the lie rolled off his tongue. Oh man, yeah. That's a vendor for this huge client I landed. They're organizing a major product launch, needed upfront capital for materials and venue deposits. I'll be reimbursed next quarter when the contract pays out. He said it so confidently, so casually, like transferring $20,000 was as normal as buying groceries. Next quarter? I repeated. Yeah, these big corporate contracts have payment schedules. You know how it is. He squeezed my hand.
Don't worry.
It's all accounted for in the agreement. Every word sounded reasonable, logical, believable, but my gut screamed liar. Have you ever known someone was lying to your face but couldn't prove it? Drop a comment if you felt that sickening feeling when your head says one thing and your heart knows another. I smiled, nodded, pretended to accept his explanation. Then I went to the bathroom and quietly threw up. For the next 2 months, I watched our account like a hawk.
Silent.
Calculating. Documenting every suspicious transaction. May 10th, $13,000 to L. Stanton. Memo. Venue coordination. May 23rd, $5,000. Memo. Vendor services. June 5th, $8,000. Memo. Material costs. June 18th, $7,000. Memo. Final adjustments. $43,000 more dollars. All flowing to this mysterious L. Stanton while Evan smiled at me over dinner, made love to me at night, whispered promises about our future. I started asking questions. Casual ones. Strategic ones. How's that big client project going? I'd ask. Great. Almost done. Should wrap up soon. He'd respond, already looking at his phone. When do you think the payment will come through? Any day now. These corporate accounts always take forever. Every answer felt rehearsed.
Polished.
Too smooth. His behavior changed too. He started keeping his phone face down. Taking calls in another room. Working late more often. Coming home smelling like unfamiliar perfume he claimed was from riding the crowded train. I played the role of trusting wife perfectly. Smiled when he kissed me goodbye. Laughed at his jokes. Made his favorite meals. But inside, I was building a case. Screenshot by screenshot. Transaction by transaction. Lie by lie. Because here's what Evan didn't understand about me. I'm a financial analyst. Pattern recognition is literally my job. I can spot anomalies in data that most people would miss. And this was the biggest anomaly I'd ever seen. $63,000 transferred to one person over 3 months. No invoices. No contracts. No paper trail except bank transactions. Either Evan was the worst businessman alive, or he was stealing from me. My money was on the latter. The question wasn't if he was lying anymore. The question was why. Who was L. Stanton? What did they mean to Evan? And why was my money funding something he needed to hide? I was about to find out. And when I did, everything would shatter. The call came on a Thursday while I was cooking, stirring sauce, pretending my marriage wasn't built on lies. Evan had texted he'd be late, another client meeting. The name on my phone was Renee Walker, a college friend turned event planner. We hadn't spoken in months. Her voice was tight, nervous. "Are you still married to Evan Reed?" she asked. The wooden spoon fell from my hand. When she told me she'd seen Evan's signature on a venue contract and the bride's name, Laura Stanton, I felt the room tilt. Renee, bound by client confidentiality but compelled by friendship, told me the wedding's $75,000 budget and that $63,000 had already been paid through transfers and a credit card listed under my name, Jenna Reed. Everything broke and rewired in that instant. He'd been funding a wedding for a woman who thought she was marrying Evan Reed, the same man sleeping in my bed. Lara's social feeds were a curated shrine. Photos of her and Evan together going back months, an engagement post from March declaring, "He finally made an honest woman out of me. Can't wait to be Mrs. Reed." Comments celebrated them finding their way back to each other. The timeline matched the moment Evan had convinced me to merge our finances. I screenshot everything, posts, comments, his conspicuous presence, and downloaded 6 months of bank transactions. Wire after wire to L. Stanton. Credits for dress fittings and venue deposits. I built a spreadsheet. Date, amount, memo, $63,000 in clean, damning rows. First practical step. Freeze the money. I called the bank's fraud department and had Evan's access suspended within an hour. Then I called my lawyer, the one I'd kept from before the marriage. "I need to file for divorce," I said, "and press fraud charges." She laughed, an ally's laugh, and promised to destroy him legally. Before the legal machinery kicked in, I wanted the other woman to know. I tracked Lara's number through a vendor and called, pretending to congratulate her. Her voice was bright, oblivious. I told her I was calling about her wedding to Evan. When she finally learned I was his legal wife, the line went cold. She protested innocence, then panic, then denial. "I'll see you at the wedding," I said. "You're not invited," she said. "Oh," I replied sweetly. I didn't say I'd be a guest. For 5 minutes, I let myself grieve. Then I wiped my tears. Burnt sauce and betrayal wouldn't fix anything. Tears wouldn't deliver justice or humiliation. So I began to plan. 2 weeks. Marin County. A coastal venue. Perfect timing for maximum spectacle. Revenge wouldn't be messy, at least not for me. It would be surgical. Expose the theft, expose the lies, make everyone there watch the empire he'd been building on my name collapse in front of the people he wanted to impress. I had evidence, screenshots, bank records, a spreadsheet that spelled out $63,000 in plain numbers, and the legal wheels turning. I'd already shut off his access to our joint funds. The rest would be performance art, legal pressure, emotional exposure, and the kind of public unraveling that would humiliate both the husband and the woman who thought she'd bought his love with my money. If you've ever had your reality rewritten in a single phone call, hit that subscribe button. Because what happened next turned grief into warfare. The countdown began. 14 days to prepare the most spectacular public humiliation either of them had ever seen. And I was going to enjoy every second. The next 2 weeks blurred into cold, calculated preparation. I moved through the house like an actress, smiling when Evan came home, cooking, making love when he wanted it, every touch a performance because he had no idea I knew. My lies had a purpose. His were just greed. At lunch, I buried myself in fraud law. Spousal theft is a gray area, but the wedding was proof of intent. This wasn't borrowing, it was a separate life funded with my money. My lawyer called it a prosecutor's dream. Wire fraud, identity theft if he'd used my card without permission, maybe attempted bigamy. I organized everything. Screenshots, bank statements, texts, a spreadsheet of transactions that totaled $63,000. I built a presentation, 63 slides for $63,000, each slide pairing a charge with Lara's Instagram. Venue deposit matched to her coastal photos, the dress payment matched to her fitting post, the catering deposit matched to her menu reveal. Every dollar I'd earned showed up as someone else's fairy tale. But this wasn't only for court. It was for the wedding. Renee had given me the details. Saturday, October 12th, 3 p.m., Marin County, 200 guests, open bar, 5-course dinner, my money feeding them all. I bought a pale blue suit that said power without noise, rehearsed my speech until the timing was surgical, knowing the officiant's any reason, line would be my moment. Too early and security would remove me. Too late and the moment would vanish. What would you do if you had 2 weeks to plan the perfect revenge? Drop a comment. I told myself because some justice is theater, not just law. The Thursday before the wedding, Evan gloated about landing a 6-figure client. Another big lie. Friday, he claimed a bachelor party and kissed me goodbye, the last kiss he'd ever give me as my husband. I pressed the suit, slipped evidence into a slim briefcase, 63 pages for $63,000, and slept with a calm certainty. Saturday came with perfect California sun. I parked away from the main lot and walked toward the ceremony, heels clicking with deliberate steps. The venue was exactly as her feeds promised. Cliffs, ocean, white flowers, the fairy tale my money bought. Guests in expensive clothes, bridesmaids in pink I might have paid for, groomsmen in suits likely bought with my cards. I took a spot behind an arrangement of roses, folder tucked away, waiting. 3 p.m. Music swelled. Evan stood at the altar, confident in his 2 lives. Lara walked down in a $12,000 gown, smiling like she'd won. As vows began and the officiant reached the moment. If anyone has any reason these two should not be wed, speak now or forever hold your peace. I stepped forward from behind the roses. Silence snapped. Gasps ricocheted. Cameras swiveled. I raised my hand and said the 2 words that detonated everything. I do. Heads turned. Evan's face went white. Lara's bouquet trembled. The officiant stammered. I smiled, cool and composed. I'm Jenna Marks, I said, letting my voice carry. Evan Reed's legal wife. And I'm here to discuss the $63,000 he stole from me to pay for this wedding. Someone whispered, record this. Perfect. Everything needed to go viral. The stage was set. The crowd would watch the empire he'd built on my name collapse in front of the people he wanted to impress. This wedding was about to become the most expensive mistake of Evan's life. And I was going to make sure everyone watched it burn. The silence after my words felt like the ocean had stopped breathing. 200 guests stared at me, some with their mouths hanging open, others already pulling out phones, fingers flying across screens, texting friends, recording videos, posting to social media in real time. This wedding was going viral before it even ended. Evan stood frozen at the altar, his face cycling through emotions so fast I could barely track them. Shock, denial, fear, anger, back to fear. Lara looked like someone had slapped her. Her perfect makeup couldn't hide the way all color drained from her face. The $12,000 dress suddenly looked like a costume she was wearing to a funeral. Her funeral. The death of her fairy tale. The officiant cleared his throat. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to. To what? I interrupted, walking closer to the altar. My heels clicked against the stone pathway, each step deliberate. Ask me to leave? Before or after I explain how every flower arrangement here was paid for with stolen money? I gestured around at the gorgeous venue. White roses everywhere. Silk drapes. Crystal chandeliers hanging from the outdoor pavilion. Ocean views that cost extra. The venue deposit? I continued. $13,000. Transferred from my personal account on May 10th while I was at work analyzing investment portfolios for actual clients. A woman in the third row gasped loud enough for everyone to hear. Evan finally found his voice. Jenna, you're making a scene? I'm making a scene? I laughed. Actually laughed. Evan, you married me 3 years ago. Then you got engaged to your ex-fiancée last March. Then you spent $63,000 of my money funding her dream wedding. And I'm the one making a scene? Murmurs rippled through the crowd like wind through grass. I could hear fragments of conversation starting. Did she say married? He's already married? Oh my God, is this real? Laura turned on Evan, her voice shaking. You told me you were divorced. You said it was finalized last year. Evan started, but nothing came after that. What could he say? The truth was standing 10 feet away in a blue suit holding evidence of his crimes. I pulled out my folder, opened it slowly. Every eye tracked the movement. Let me read you some highlights, I said, my voice carrying across the stunned venue. April 3rd. $20,000 wired to L. Stanton with the memo. Initial deposit. That was you, Laura. You remember that day? When Evan told you he had the money ready? She didn't answer, just stood there shaking. May 23rd. $5,000 for floral arrangements. June 18th. $7,000 for the photographer currently taking pictures of your horrified faces. The photographer actually lowered his camera. July 2nd. $8,000 for the catering company that's preparing your 5-course meal right now in that kitchen. I pointed toward the venue building. Should I keep going? I have 63 pages. One for every $1,000 stolen. Have you ever watched someone's entire life collapse in real time? Hit that like button if you believe karma always finds its target. Security was moving toward me now. 2 large men in dark suits weaving through the seated guests. But they weren't rushing. Even they wanted to hear how this ended. Evan stepped down from the altar, hands raised like I was a wild animal he needed to calm. Jenna, please. Let's talk about this privately. Privately? I cut him off. Like how you privately open credit cards in my name. Or privately forged my signature on vendor contracts. Or privately told your fiancé you were single while sleeping in our bed every night. Laura made a sound like someone had punched her. She turned to Evan. Our bed? You're still living with her? It's complicated, Evan stammered. It's really not, I said. He's a thief and a liar. That's pretty simple. One of the groomsmen, clearly drunk already, shouted from the front row. Dude, you're still married? Evan ignored him, kept his focus on me. Jenna, I was going to tell you. I just needed time. Time? My voice went cold. You had 3 years. You had $63,000 worth of time. How much more did you need? The security guards reached me. One touched my elbow gently. Ma'am, I'm going to have to escort you out. I nodded. I understand. But first, I turned to address the crowd. To all the guests who traveled here today, who brought gifts, who came to celebrate love. You should know that every dollar spent on this wedding was stolen. The bride had no idea. The groom is a criminal. And if you're wondering whether to stay for dinner, just remember you're eating food purchased with fraud. Then I looked directly at Laura. Our eyes met for the first time. I'm not angry at you, I said, and I meant it. He lied to you too. Used you. The difference is he used my money to do it. I'll be filing charges Monday morning. If you were smart, you'd talk to a lawyer before then. Accessory to fraud is a real charge, even if you didn't know. Her legs gave out. She actually crumpled, her father rushing forward to catch her before she hit the ground in that expensive gown. Evan reached for me. Jenna, wait. I stepped back, avoiding his touch. Don't. You lost the right to touch me the first time you stole from me. The divorce papers will be served Monday, along with a fraud report filed with every financial institution tied to both our names. Your credit is done. Your reputation is destroyed. And your future? I smiled. Well, you just watched it dissolve in front of 200 witnesses. The security guard tugged my elbow more insistently. Ma'am, Time to go. I let him lead me away. Walked back down that aisle with my head high, my spine straight, my folder of evidence tucked under my arm like a trophy. Behind me, chaos erupted. Laura sobbing. Evan shouting explanations no one believed. Guests arguing about whether to stay or leave. The officiant closing his book with a definitive snap. I reached my car, slid into the driver's seat, and sat there for a moment. My hands were shaking now. Adrenaline finally catching up to me. I'd done it. Actually done it. Walked into that wedding and detonated the truth like a bomb. But the war wasn't over. The real battle started Monday morning. And I was ready. The drive home felt surreal. I kept expecting my phone to explode with calls from Evan, texts begging for forgiveness, voicemails full of excuses. But it stayed silent. Maybe he was too busy dealing with the wreckage I'd left behind. Or maybe he finally understood that some betrayals can't be explained away. When I got home, I poured myself a glass of wine, sat on my balcony, watched the sunset paint the San Francisco skyline in shades of orange and gold. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. My phone finally buzzed around 8 p.m. But it wasn't Evan. It was Renee. Jenna. Oh my God. What did you do? I smiled. What I had to. It's everywhere. Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. Someone recorded the whole thing. You're viral. Viral. The word should have scared me. Instead, it felt like validation. What are people saying? I asked. They're on your side. Completely. The comments are insane. People calling Evan every name in the book. Some are even trying to find Lara's social media to tell her she dodged a bullet. Renee paused. Are you okay? Was I okay? I'd just publicly humiliated my husband and ruined a wedding in front of hundreds of people. I'd exposed theft, lies, and betrayal in the most dramatic way possible. I'm better than okay, I said. I'm free. And I meant it. That night, I looked up the videos people had posted. There were dozens. Different angles, different perspectives, all showing the same moment. Me raising my hand, me stepping forward, me saying those two perfect words, I do. The comments were exactly what Renee described. Thousands of them. This woman is a queen. Imagine stealing $63K and getting exposed at the wedding. Iconic. I would have done the same thing. He deserved every second of that humiliation. The way she stayed calm while destroying his life. Chef's kiss. Some people criticized me, called me petty, vindictive, cruel for ruining someone's wedding day. But most people understood. Most people saw what I saw. Justice being served in the only language cheaters understand. Public humiliation. If you've ever wanted to confront someone who wronged you but didn't have the courage, drop a comment. Tell me your story. Because standing up for yourself isn't cruel, it's necessary. Sunday morning, my lawyer called. Jenna, please tell me you didn't just crash a wedding and accuse your husband of fraud in front of hundreds of people. I absolutely did. She groaned. You know that complicates the case, right? Defense attorneys love when victims take matters into their own hands. Do I still have evidence? Mountains of it. Then the case isn't complicated. It's just entertaining now. She laughed despite herself.
Fine.
But we're filing everything Monday morning. Divorce petition, fraud charges, identity theft report. The works. Be at my office at 9 a.m. sharp. Monday morning arrived with clouds and rain. Fitting weather for ending a marriage. I dressed in a sharp black suit. Professional. Untouchable. The kind of outfit that says, I'm here for business, and business is vengeance. My lawyer's office was downtown. Modern building, glass walls, expensive furniture. The kind of place that charges by the minute and wins cases by the dozens. We spent 2 hours going through paperwork. Every form, every signature, every legal document that would officially dissolve my marriage and potentially put Evan behind bars. The fraud charges are solid, my lawyer explained. Wire fraud, identity theft, unauthorized use of financial accounts. We have bank records, screenshots, witness testimony from vendors who confirmed he used your card. What about Lara? I asked. Harder to prove, she knew. Unless we can show she was aware the money was stolen, she's technically a victim too. An entitled, awful victim, but still. I nodded. I didn't need Laura to go to prison. I just needed her to understand that fairy tales funded by theft don't end happily. By noon, everything was filed. Divorce petition submitted to the court. Fraud report delivered to the district attorney. My bank had frozen all joint accounts and flagged Evan's name across every financial institution in California.
His credit was dead.
His reputation was destroyed. His future was litigation and debt. And me? I walked out of that office feeling lighter than I had in years. Tuesday morning, I got the call I'd been waiting for.
Evan wanted to talk.
Not through lawyers. Not through text. Face to face. He claimed he wanted to explain, apologize, make things right. I agreed to meet him at a coffee shop. Public place. Cameras everywhere. Safety and witnesses. He looked terrible. Dark circles under his eyes. Rumpled clothes. Hair unwashed. The confident, charming man I'd married had been replaced by someone who looked defeated, desperate.
Good.
He sat down across from me, hands shaking around his coffee cup. Jenna, I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I need you to know. Know what? I interrupted. That you're sorry you got caught? Because you're not sorry you stole from me. You're sorry I exposed you. He flinched. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. How was it supposed to happen, Evan? Were you planning to divorce me quietly after the wedding? Disappear with Laura and hope I never found out where my money went? He didn't answer, which was an answer itself. I loved you, I said quietly. I trusted you. I merged my entire financial life with yours because you convinced me that's what marriage meant. And you used that trust to fund a completely separate life. I never stopped caring about you, he tried. I laughed bitterly. You stole $63,000 from me. You proposed to another woman. You signed contracts using my name. That's not caring, Evan. That's sociopathy. He reached across the table. I pulled my hand back before he could touch me. Don't, I said. You lost that right. What do you want from me? He asked, voice breaking. Nothing. You have nothing left to give me except consequences. I stood up, leaving my untouched coffee on the table. The divorce will be finalized in 6 months. The fraud charges will take longer. You'll probably avoid jail time if you plead guilty and agree to restitution. But your name will be flagged forever. Every background check. Every credit application. Every future relationship where someone Googles you and finds videos of your wedding crashing. I leaned down, my voice dropping to a whisper only he could hear. You wanted to fund her wedding so badly? Consider this your investment's return. Humiliation, public shame, and the knowledge that you destroyed the one person who actually loved you. I walked away without looking back. He called after me. Jenna, please. But I was already gone. Outside, rain poured down. I stood in it for a moment, letting it wash over me. It felt like baptism, like cleansing, like the start of something new. 3 weeks later, the divorce was progressing smoothly. Evan had hired a lawyer, but there wasn't much to fight. The evidence was overwhelming. The marriage was over. The only question was how much restitution he'd owe. My lawyer estimated I'd recover every cent, plus interest plus legal fees. California doesn't look kindly on spousal fraud. The criminal case was moving slower. The district attorney was building a case for wire fraud and identity theft. Evan's lawyer was pushing for a plea deal, guilty plea, community service, repayment plan, no jail time. I didn't care if he went to prison. I just wanted my money back and my name cleared. But the real satisfaction came from watching his life unravel in real time. His freelance clients dropped him immediately. No one wants to hire someone infamous for financial fraud. His social media accounts disappeared, deleted after being flooded with angry comments and messages. Laura vanished too. Her Instagram went private. Her Facebook deleted. Her entire online presence erased like she'd never existed. I wondered sometimes if she hated me for ruining her wedding. Then I remembered she'd been perfectly happy spending stolen money and decided I didn't care. My life, meanwhile, improved dramatically. The The viral videos brought unexpected opportunities. A podcaster reached out wanting to interview me about financial abuse in relationships. A publisher asked if I'd consider writing a book about my experience. I declined both. This wasn't about fame. It was about justice. But I did start a blog. Anonymous at first, then eventually under my real name. I wrote about financial independence, recognizing red flags in relationships, protecting yourself legally before merging finances. The blog exploded. Thousands of people shared their own stories of being financially abused, manipulated, or stolen from by partners they trusted. I wasn't alone. None of us were. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you loved, you know that healing isn't linear. Some days I felt powerful, vindicated, unstoppable. Other days I felt sad, grieving the marriage I thought I had. But every day, I felt freer. 4 months after the wedding crash, I got an unexpected message. It was from Laura. My first instinct was to delete it, block her, move on. But curiosity won. The message was short. Can we talk? Just once. Please. Against my better judgment, I agreed. We met at a neutral location, a park bench overlooking the bay. She looked different. Smaller somehow, less polished. Like someone had turned down her brightness. Thank you for meeting me, she said, not quite making eye contact.
I didn't respond.
Just waited. I wanted to apologize, she continued. I know it doesn't change anything, but I need you to know I had no idea. About you. About the money. About any of it. I believe you, I said. And I did. She'd been a pawn in Evan's game, just like me.
He told me you were divorced.
That it ended badly. That you'd been terrible to him, and he'd finally moved on. She laughed bitterly. I actually felt sorry for him. He's good at that, I said. Making people feel sorry for him. We sat in silence for a moment, two women who'd been manipulated by the same man, processing the aftermath. I'm going to testify, Laura said suddenly. In the criminal case. Against Evan. My lawyer said it might help your case if I confirm he told me he was single, that he had his own money. It proves intent to deceive. I looked at her, surprised. You don't have to do that. I know.
But I want to.
He used both of us. And I'm tired of letting men use me. For the first time since this whole nightmare started, I felt something other than anger toward Laura. Maybe not friendship, but understanding. Thank you, I said. She nodded, then stood to leave. For what it's worth, I'm sorry you went through this. You didn't deserve it. Neither did you, I replied. She walked away, and I sat there thinking about how betrayal creates unexpected connections. How trauma can bond strangers. How sometimes the people you think are enemies are just other victims in the same story. What would you do if the person who unknowingly participated in your betrayal apologized? Comment below because healing takes forms we don't always expect. 6 months after the wedding, the divorce was finalized. I stood in the courthouse, signed the papers, and walked out a legally single woman. Evan wasn't there. His lawyer handled everything. Probably better that way. I had nothing left to say to him. The criminal case settled a week later. Plea deal accepted. Evan pleaded guilty to wire fraud and identity theft. No jail time, but 5 years probation, community service, and full restitution of $63,000 plus $20,000 in interest and legal fees. $83,000. Paid in monthly installments for the next 10 years. Every month, I'd receive a check from the man who'd stolen from me. A reminder of what he'd done. A payment on the debt he'd never fully repay. Because you can repay money. You can't repay trust. 1 year after the wedding crash, I stood on the same coastal cliffs where it had all gone down. Not for revenge this time. Just for peace. A client had hired me to plan a corporate event at a nearby venue. Ironic, maybe, but also fitting. I watched the sunset paint the ocean in shades of gold and realized I wasn't angry anymore. Not at Evan. Not at Laura. Not even at myself for trusting someone who didn't deserve it. I was just tired and ready to move forward. My business was thriving. My blog had become a resource for thousands. My bank account was recovering. My heart was healing. I'd taken the worst betrayal of my life and transformed it into purpose. That's not revenge. That's alchemy. The first payment arrived on a Tuesday. I stared at the check for a long time. $750. Made out to Jenna Marks. I'd taken back my maiden name. Signed by Evan Reed in handwriting that looked defeated, small. Part of me wanted to frame it. Physical proof that justice, however delayed, eventually comes. Instead, I deposited it. Watched my account balance increase by $750. The first of many payments that would trickle in over the next decade. Every month, I'd receive a reminder of what he'd done. Every month, he'd be forced to remember what he'd lost. That felt more satisfying than any apology could have been. Life settled into a new rhythm after the divorce finalized. I moved out of our shared apartment. Too many memories. Too many lies embedded in the walls. I found a studio in a different neighborhood.
Small but mine.
Completely, utterly mine. No joint accounts. No shared finances. No one else's name on the lease. Freedom tastes better than you'd expect. Quiet. Simple.
Clean.
Work became my focus. I'd always been good at my job, but now I was exceptional. My blog about financial independence grew from hundreds of followers to thousands, then tens of thousands. People messaged me daily with their own stories. Women who'd discovered their husbands were hiding debt. Men who'd learned their partners were gambling away shared savings. Couples realizing too late that trust without verification is just naivety. I started doing speaking engagements. Small at first, local financial planning conferences, women's groups, college seminars. Then bigger. Corporate events. TEDx talks. National conferences about financial literacy and relationship transparency. The story of the wedding crash became legendary in certain circles. Not because I'd been vindictive, but because I'd been prepared. Because I'd documented everything. Because when the moment came to expose the truth, I had receipts. Literally. If you believe that preparation is the best revenge, smash that subscribe button. Because this channel is about turning pain into power, and we're just getting started. 8 months after the divorce, I ran into someone from the wedding. I was at a coffee shop, working on my laptop, when a woman approached my table hesitantly. "Excuse me, are you Jenna Marks?" I looked up. She seemed familiar, but I couldn't place her. "I was at the wedding," she said, reading my confusion. "Not a close friend, just an old college acquaintance of Lara's. I just wanted to say."
She paused.
"What you did was incredible."
Brave.
And it actually changed my life. I blinked. "Changed your life?" She sat down, uninvited but welcome. I was in a bad relationship. My boyfriend was controlling, financially manipulative. Watching your video, seeing how you stood up for yourself, it gave me courage to leave. I documented everything like you did.
Took back control.
Got out safely. Her eyes were wet. "So, thank you. You probably saved me years of suffering." She left before I could fully process what she'd said. But that conversation stayed with me, replayed in my head for days. I'd thought the wedding crash was just about me. My revenge. My closure. My justice. But maybe it was bigger than that. Maybe exposing one liar gave permission to others to expose theirs. Maybe my public confrontation created space for private ones. Maybe the best revenge isn't just personal. It's collective. 10 months after the divorce, Evan tried to contact me one last time. Not through lawyers this time. Just a simple email. Subject line: "I'm sorry." I almost deleted it without reading. Almost. But curiosity has always been my weakness. The email was long, rambling, full of excuses dressed up as explanations. He claimed he'd been depressed, confused, lost. That reconnecting with Lara had felt like rediscovering an old version of himself. That he'd never meant to hurt me. But the part that stuck out was near the end. "I see the videos sometimes."
Of that day.
"And I realize you weren't just exposing me.
You were freeing yourself."
I hope you found happiness, Jenna. Real happiness. The kind I couldn't give you." I read it twice. Then closed the laptop. He wanted absolution. Wanted me to reply, to tell him I forgave him, to release him from the guilt that probably ate at him every time he wrote one of those monthly checks. But I didn't owe him that. Forgiveness isn't something you give to people who hurt you. It's something you give to yourself when you're ready to stop carrying the weight of their actions.
And I wasn't ready yet.
Maybe I'd never be.
So I didn't reply.
Just marked the email as read and moved on with my day. Because that's what healing looks like sometimes. Not dramatic closure. Not tearful reconciliation. Just the quiet choice to prioritize your peace over someone else's guilt. 1 year after the wedding crash, my life looked completely different. New apartment, thriving career, growing platform, peaceful nights, mornings without anxiety, bank account that was mine and mine alone. I'd started dating again, cautiously, with boundaries that would have seemed paranoid in my old life but felt necessary now. Background checks before third dates. Separate finances indefinitely. Prenups discussed openly and without shame. Some men ran when they heard my story. Good. I didn't want anyone who saw my caution as paranoia instead of wisdom. But some men understood. Some had their own stories of betrayal, their own reasons for being careful. I wasn't looking for perfect. Just honest. Just real. And slowly, cautiously, I started believing that honest love might actually exist. The anniversary of the wedding arrived on a Saturday, October 12th. Exactly 1 year since I'd stood in that coastal venue and detonated my marriage. I drove back to Marin County. Not to the venue, that felt too pointed. Just to the cliffs nearby. Sat on a bench, overlooking the ocean. Watched waves crash against rocks. Felt the wind carry salt spray against my skin. A year ago, I'd been furious. Hurt.
Determined to make them pay. Now?
I was just grateful. Grateful I'd discovered the truth before wasting more years. Grateful I'd had the courage to confront it publicly. Grateful I'd documented everything instead of just suffering silently. Grateful I'd chosen myself when choosing him would have destroyed me. That's the thing about betrayal. It either breaks you or remakes you. And I decided early that Evan Reed wouldn't get to break me. He'd already taken enough. My money, my trust.
3 years of my life.
But he hadn't taken my dignity, my strength, my future. Those I'd kept, protected, rebuilt stronger than before. As I sat there watching the sunset, my phone buzzed. Another check notification. Another $750 deposited. I smiled, not because of the money, but because every payment was proof that I'd won. Not in court, not in public opinion, not even in the divorce settlement. I'd won by surviving, by thriving, by transforming pain into purpose. And that victory? No one could ever take that away. The first payment arrived on a Tuesday. I stared at the check for a long time. $750. Made out to Jenna Marks. I'd taken back my maiden name. Signed by Evan Reed in handwriting that looked defeated, small. Part of me wanted to frame it. Physical proof that justice, however delayed, eventually comes. Instead, I deposited it. Watched my account balance increase by $750. The first of many payments that would trickle in over the next decade. Every month, I'd receive a reminder of what he'd done. Every month, he'd be forced to remember what he'd lost. That felt more satisfying than any apology could have been. Life settled into a new rhythm after the divorce finalized. I moved out of our shared apartment. Too many memories. Too many lies embedded in the walls. I found a studio in a different neighborhood.
Small but mine.
Completely, utterly mine. No joint accounts. No shared finances. No one else's name on the lease. Freedom tastes better than you'd expect. Quiet. Simple.
Clean.
Work became my focus. I'd always been good at my job, but now I was exceptional. My blog about financial independence grew from hundreds of followers to thousands, then tens of thousands. People messaged me daily with their own stories. Women who'd discovered their husbands were hiding debt. Men who'd learned their partners were gambling away shared savings. Couples realizing too late that trust without verification is just naivety. I started doing speaking engagements. Small at first, local financial planning conferences, women's groups, college seminars. Then bigger. Corporate events, TEDx talks, national conferences about financial literacy and relationship transparency. The story of the wedding crash became legendary in certain circles. Not because I'd been vindictive, but because I'd been prepared. Because I'd documented everything. Because when the moment came to expose the truth, I had receipts. Literally. If you believe that preparation is the best revenge, smash that subscribe button. Because this channel is about turning pain into power, and we're just getting started. 8 months after the divorce, I ran into someone from the wedding. I was at a coffee shop, working on my laptop, when a woman approached my table hesitantly. "Excuse me, are you Jenna Marks?" I looked up. She seemed familiar, but I couldn't place her. "I was at the wedding," she said, reading my confusion. "Not a close friend, just an old college acquaintance of Lara's. I just wanted to say."
She paused.
"What you did was incredible.
Brave.
And it actually changed my life." I blinked. "Changed your life?" She sat down, uninvited but welcome. I was in a bad relationship. My boyfriend was controlling, financially manipulative. Watching your video, seeing how you stood up for yourself, it gave me courage to leave. I documented everything like you did.
Took back control.
Got out safely. Her eyes were wet. "So, thank you. You probably saved me years of suffering." She left before I could fully process what she'd said. But that conversation stayed with me, replayed in my head for days. I'd thought the wedding crash was just about me. My revenge. My closure. My justice. But maybe it was bigger than that. Maybe exposing one liar gave permission to others to expose theirs. Maybe my public confrontation created space for private ones. Maybe the best revenge isn't just personal. It's collective. 10 months after the divorce, Evan tried to contact me one last time. Not through lawyers this time. Just a simple email. Subject line: "I'm sorry." I almost deleted it without reading. Almost. But curiosity has always been my weakness. The email was long, rambling, full of excuses dressed up as explanations. He claimed he'd been depressed, confused, lost. That reconnecting with Lara had felt like rediscovering an old version of himself. That he'd never meant to hurt me. But the part that stuck out was near the end. "I see the videos sometimes.
Of that day.
And I realize you weren't just exposing me.
You were freeing yourself.
I hope you found happiness, Jenna. Real happiness. The kind I couldn't give you." I read it twice. Then closed the laptop. He wanted absolution. Wanted me to reply, to tell him I forgave him, to release him from the guilt that probably ate at him every time he wrote one of those monthly checks. But I didn't owe him that. Forgiveness isn't something you give to people who hurt you. It's something you give to yourself when you're ready to stop carrying the weight of their actions.
And I wasn't ready yet.
Maybe I'd never be.
So I didn't reply.
Just marked the email as read and moved on with my day. Because that's what healing looks like sometimes. Not dramatic closure. Not tearful reconciliation. Just the quiet choice to prioritize your peace over someone else's guilt. 1 year after the wedding crash, my life looked completely different. New apartment. Thriving career. Growing platform. Peaceful nights. Mornings without anxiety. Bank account that was mine and mine alone. I'd started dating again. Cautiously. With boundaries that would have seemed paranoid in my old life, but felt necessary now. Background checks before third dates. Separate finances indefinitely. Prenups discussed openly and without shame. Some men ran when they heard my story. Good. I didn't want anyone who saw my caution as paranoia instead of wisdom. But some men understood. Some had their own stories of betrayal, their own reasons for being careful. I wasn't looking for perfect. Just honest. Just real. And slowly, cautiously, I started believing that honest love might actually exist. The anniversary of the wedding arrived on a Saturday. October 12th. Exactly 1 year since I'd stood in that coastal venue and detonated my marriage. I drove back to Marin County. Not to the venue, that felt too pointed. just to the cliffs nearby. Sat on a bench overlooking the ocean. Watched waves crash against rocks. Felt the wind carry salt spray against my skin. A year ago, I'd been furious, hurt,
Determined to make them pay. Now?
I was just grateful. Grateful I'd discovered the truth before wasting more years. Grateful I'd had the courage to confront it publicly. Grateful I'd documented everything instead of just suffering silently. Grateful I'd chosen myself when choosing him would have destroyed me. That's the thing about betrayal. It either breaks you or remakes you. And I decided early that Evan Reed wouldn't get to break me. He'd already taken enough. My money, my trust.
3 years of my life.
But he hadn't taken my dignity, my strength, my future. Those I'd kept, protected, rebuilt stronger than before. As I sat there watching the sunset, my phone buzzed. Another check notification. Another $750 deposited. I smiled, not because of the money, but because every payment was proof that I'd won. Not in court, not in public opinion, not even in the divorce settlement. I'd won by surviving, by thriving, by transforming pain into purpose. And that victory? No one could ever take that away.